and welcome to this English news edition. Here are the major stories. The head of state received a strong ministerial delegation from southern Sudan. And on the international scene, Ministry of Communication, Jeep Telecom, Prime Minister Spencer Adair under this meeting. And on the international scene, agreement for peace in Libya. Those were the headlines. Thanks for joining us in our newsroom. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margili, received this morning in audience at the People's Palace, the Palace of the Republic, a large delegation from the South Sudan, led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Awad Deng. The discussions focus on cooperation between Djibouti and Southern Sudan, and the various conventions signed in the areas of trade and a petroleum project. Djibouti is a maritime issues for Southern Sudan, with its modern and highly efficiency infrastructure on its high quality service in the areas of port and trade in counterized product. The Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation was accompanied by the Minister of Trade, the Minister for Petroleum and Energy, and the Minister of Transport, Simon Mijog. The Djiboutian side, in addition to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, the Minister for Equipment and Transport, Musa Mohammed Ahmed, the Minister for Trade, Hassan Mohammed, and the Minister of Energy, Yunis Ali Gedi attend. Also note the presence of the Chairman of the Port and Free Zones Authorities, Abubakar Umar Hadi. The South Sudanese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Audi Deng, said Djibouti is very important for South Sudan as it serves as an outlet for the maritime areas. Let's listen to her.
First of all, we wanted to register our gratitude to the government and the people of Djibouti, and particularly His Excellency Geli, who had been supporting South Sudan before the independence, until our independence. South Sudan has been going through a process of peace, and his role has been key always for the support of our country and our people. So we have come here as a follow-up meetings, mainly to discuss our bilateral relations, particularly Djibouti being the strategic country in terms of routing of trades and business. We have signed agreements to connect Africa, but mainly to connect Djibouti and South Sudan. This agreement, we want now to put them, to operationalize them and take actions that will improve the trade between us and boost the economy for our two countries. So we have come here with different ministries in South Sudan, which will be meeting this afternoon, to brief His Excellency the President of intentions of what South Sudan want to do right now to move this agreement to progress and to move forward. Since there is peace now in South Sudan and the government will be formed, we wanted to use the strategic country like Djibouti to facilitate the movement of our goods and services, and also the trade between us. South Sudan is a very rich country. Djibouti is also a rich country where it has a lot of expertise and resource which is facilitating international trade and businesses. And we feel it is time for us now to take off from where we left it, because previously we were using the route of Djibouti to South Sudan, delivering the goods and services for the people of South Sudan. So with the agenda of Africa, where Africa is supposed to be connected, it is time for us now with Djibouti and South Sudan to work on the infrastructure that will connect the two countries for the benefit of our people and for the benefit of our.
For his part, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation indicate that they will have a meeting with the Department of Foreign Affairs on the various projects being carried out between the two countries, and he highlights efficient infrastructure and its high-quality service in the areas of port and trade in the counternoise product. Prime Minister Abdulkadir Kamil Mohammed today sponsored the ceremony to launch the Dar-1 submarine cable and the Siesta Beach linking Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, and even Tanzania. Upon his arrival in Djibouti, the Prime Minister Abdulkadir Kamil Mohammed was greeted by the Minister of Communication in charge of Post and Telecommunication, Mr. Radwan Abdullahi Badon, and by the Director of Djibouti Telecom, Mohammed Assoui. The delegation took part in the last work before the landing of the new submarine cable, Djibouti Africa Regional Express. In addition to the Prime Minister, this ceremony was attended by the President of the National Assembly, Mohammed Ali Ahmed, the Minister of Communication, and the Minister of Budget, the Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, and the Minister of Dean's Waqf. Indeed, thanks to the Dar-1, the national telecommunication operators want to connect East Africa to the rest of the world via through the conjunction of the infrastructure with others submarine fiber optics system. Djibouti Telecom's management team is planning to expand and extend the Dar-1 cable to other parts of the African continent. This is the first African submarine cable initiated by the Republic of Djibouti. The Budget Minister Abdul Karim Aden Sher made a statement to the media in which he discussed the economic importance of the new submarine cable. He also said that Dar-1 is the first cable African submarine initiated by the Republic of Djibouti, and it is a pride for the Republic of Djibouti to have its own submarine cable. In an interview, the Minister of Communication responsible for Post and Telecommunication, Radwan Abdullahi Badon, recalled that the Republic of Djibouti currently has the largest number of international connections in the East Africa, being connected to 8 cables that connect the country to Europe, East Africa, the Middle East, the Eastern Mediterranean, and the South Asia. The Minister of Communication responsible for Post and Telecommunication, Mr. Radwan Abdullahi, also recalled that the Dar-1 project is dedicated to increasing the level of connectivity of the regional optical fibers. Its objective is to ensure multiple and secure access and denser traffic between the various strongholds of the region in interconnect networks. Still on national news, the Parliamentary Group on Population and Development held its first workshop yesterday, Sunday, to present and launch its first and future activities in partnership with the United Nations Population and Development Fund. This workshop is an opportunity for the parliamentarians gathered in the Parliamentary Group on Population and Development to prioritize a specific issue related to, among others, reproductive health, family planning, human rights, and gender promotion, access to schooling, and health in general. inquire acts of women volunteers or associatives movement who encourage us to work more. She did not fail to thank all the women volunteers who spares no effort to the social economic development of their neighborhood. Finally, the Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity assured all the women volunteers that she was fully available to exchange any ideas, allowing Djiboutian society to achieve a rally socio-economic development. The Embassy of India installed in Djibouti yesterday to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the birth of Mohandas Gandhi, Gandhi Mohandas, the day non-violence, the anniversary date. Gandhi had launched the civil movement that will lead to the independence of India in 1947 took place at the leadership centers, indeed under the patronage of the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Finance and Industry, Ilyas Musa Dawali, who erected the speech in the name of Gandhi, a man full of wisdom. A statue of the Gandhi Mohandas was granted in front of the Indian Department, was inaugurated, and books and historical photos of this period were exhibited. Since the independence of the country on August 15, 1947, the date of birthday of Gandhi, October 2, is a holiday in all India. It is also a dry day. Many personalities were present at this ceremony, and this commemoration, including ambassadors and representatives of foreign nations. In honor of Gandhi, they plant a tree in his honor.
The essence of his principles and his selfless service dedicated to a nation holds relevance to all the world. This is why we are here today, to ensure that his legacy is remembered and celebrated. Mahatma Gandhi was an exceptional leader and human being. He has influenced and inspired both individuals and world leaders in the fight against inequality and oppression.
The Minister of Economy joined to participate in the Mahatam ceremony and thanks the Indian Corporation for its support. The Minister recalled the powerful message of Gandhi about the non-violence. It is still continuing to resonate around the world, particularly through the work of the United Nations in promoting mutual understanding and equal sustainable development. This is a historical moment, he said, and referring to the famous quotation to Gandhi that was, the future depends on what we do in the present. The Minister of Equipment and Transport, Mr. Musa Muhammad Ahmed, received this Sunday at his office in the presence of Daoud Ali Abdu, Director General of the PI and the Civil Aviation Authorities, a delegation of the International Civil Aviation Organization composed of Mr. Dennis Guindon, Deputy Director of the Office Air Navigations, and Barry, Regional Director of ESAF, of the working mission of 24 hours in Djibouti. The aims of this delegation was to note the remarkable work and progress made by the Djibouti CAA. The delegation encouraged the Djibouti Civil Aviation Authorities for the effort made and considered that all the measures relating to the smooth conduct to the audit were satisfactory. Lastly, the delegation thanked the Minister of Equipment and Transport for his support for the development of the civil aviation, so that air transport could have a real impact on the country's economic development. Still on national news, the State Secretary in charge of decentralization, His Excellency Hamidou Mohamed Aramis, surrounded by his staff, had today in the meeting room of his department an important working session with the President of the Executive of 5 regional council of the country. For more details, let's listen to our colleague Dini Musa.
Of this meeting of decentralization stakeholders, which was held at the beginning of the new year, there was obviously an exercise of assessment of the past year in the implementation of the decentralization process. In other words, a retrospective and cross views of the activities undertaken during this period, to which was added to refocusing on the issue of the transfer of commitments. An insight into the progress of the project to support decentralization, the strengthening of the local government system and local development in the European Union, exchange on the decentralization program for this year 2020, and various other issues. In his address, the Minister in charge of decentralization, Mr. Hamidou Mohamed Aramis, first of all presented to the presidents of regional executive all his best wishes for this new year, health but also success in the accomplishment of their missions, among others.
On Health Department, as part of vector control, the National Institute of Public Health of Djibouti, the pursuing activities to destroy larval deposits in septic tank and latrines. These activities is carried out by the NSPD in close collaboration with the community agent in the suburb of Balbala. In fact, the distribution sites have been set up in the neighborhood in order to control the proliferation of the mosquitoes by destroying larval kits with a view to eliminating the risk of transmissions of malaria and other vectors on burns disease, which are epidemic in our country. In addition, the teams of hygienists are at work using the spreading process of spreading over stagnant water and in the pits. The Red Crescents of Djibouti proceeded this morning to the distributions of kits for some 600 vulnerable households in the Chek Farah district of the Merjok locality. This donation was made in the presence of the sub-prefect of the Merjok, the president of the Red Crescent, the Secretary General of the Red Crescent, the ambassador of Kuwait in Djibouti, and the chairman of the Kuwait Red Crescent delegation. Indeed, this donation consists largely of kits for women, men, and children, and blankets for the needy households has been furnished by the Kuwait Red Crescent, which testifies to be unfailing donation to the National Society of Red Crescents of Djibouti to carry out and frames the Kuwaiti Red Crescent, the vulnerable households of Sheikh Farah, neighborhood of the Merjok, have not failed to thank the Red Crescents of Djibouti, and through them the Kuwaiti and from his side, the ambassador of Kuwait at Djibouti thanked the Red Crescents of Djibouti. He recalled that these kits are more these kits of more things. The Red Crescents of Djibouti gave us this possibility to give the most vulnerable families of the localities of the Merjok. The Kuwait Red Crescent delegation thanked the Red Crescents of Djibouti for their support in distributing the kits to the most vulnerable households. And to finish our national news, with a fire broke out last night around 11 o'clock p.m. in the Arhiba city, destroying 4 houses, including a shop and a studio. The fire spread rapidly to the surrounding the local population, and the civil protection were mobilized on the spot and were able to control the fire. This fire has caused extensive property damage. In addition to civil protection, police elements secure the fire area in Arhiba district. obituary, we regret to inform you the death of Suleiman Hassan Galab last night at Peltier Hospital. The late Suleiman Hassan Galab began his career in 1982 and became an employee at the National Printing Office as well as the typographer until today. The late Suleiman Hassan Galab is 55 years old. That died with the age of 55 years old and left behind him a widow and 4 children. May God welcome him in his eternal paradise. In Allah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Moving on to the international and regional scene, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said that the major powers are fully committed to a peaceful solution to the crisis in Libya after an international summit in the German capital, Berlin. For more details in this report.
The UN-sponsored Libyan Peace Conference in Berlin on Sunday opens in a tense atmosphere. The task is difficult and an agreement seems unlikely after the failure of the talks held in Russia earlier this week. All the major international players in this crisis will be present in Berlin. However, the chances of reaching a lasting agreement remain low, according to UN envoy Qassam Salami. The objective of the Berlin conference are clear. The first is to consolidate the ceasefire that has been enforced to countries since 12th January, but which according to Qassam Salami is more similar to a truce. The United Nations would like to go further by separating the two rival camps, representing heavy weapons, uniting institutions, sharing resources, among other things.
This is it for this edition. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening.